What traits really matter when it comes to the NFL draft? Got some good questions in the Locked On 49ers mailbag on this Winky Wednesday episode. And what about Tom Brady coming to an NFL broadcast near you? Not this year, maybe next year. I think Croc and I have some thoughts on that on today's Locked On 49ers coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're listening to this on or watching this on YouTube Tuesday evening, we're a little premature. We're a little early with it. But if you're on your drive to work, maybe Wednesday morning, you know what the score is. You know what time it is. It is Wednesday. That means it is Winky Wednesday.
Nick Winkler, come on down.
Wink, how you doing, man? Anything you stinking on this week? What about these reports about the underwhelming young quarterback that is Trey Lance?
Yeah, I'm just not buying it. It feels to me like ultimate clickbait, like, oh, well, this stuff with Jimmy Garoppolo's died down. Now I need to put something out there to get people to click on my articles so that they keep paying me. Oh, here we go. I heard once that this one guy was underwhelmed with this one thing that happened in practice. I'm going to make it sound really broad and general and get people to click on my stuff. Like, I'm just not buying it.
Yeah, here's a story I'm going to throw out there. I got some really reliable sources that a 20-year-old quarterback isn't a Hall of Famer yet.
Right. Yeah. Shocking.
So good stuff there. And who knows, maybe someday Trey Lance will become a Hall of Famer and we'll have a post-NFL career and maybe get teamed up with one of us and we'll have one of those paychecks, one of those $375 million for 10-year contracts talking about football. Look, and Croc was already going off a little bit off the air about this, and I had to chuckle. We weren't going to talk a bunch about the Tom Brady stuff about his rumored contract here, that he's going to be broadcasting games for Fox Sports, getting $37.5 million a year for 10 years. $375 million contract for Tom Brady, who has never broadcasted a game. Croc, what's the most you've ever been paid for something that you've never done before you did it?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. Hold on, you got to come back to me. I got to think about that.
What do you think, Wink? Tom Brady is a broadcaster? Do you think? Because Tom Brady, to me, is personality-wise, I think could be a little boring. I understand the name value, and this is
Sure.
This whole thing is super simple. This is Suits at Fox that just lost Troy Aikman, and they want to one-up the Suits over at ESPN, and they want to say, look what we did. We just got the GOAT to be our next guy. So
you think he's boring?
I'll put it this way. I would choose to watch a game that was broadcasted by Peyton Manning over Tom Brady. Sure. I would probably choose
Manning is very cookie cutter. Like, I mean, he's very like he doesn't give, there's no shock value at all.
Nobody's more cookie cutter than Tom Brady.
I think Tom Brady actually, I think he shows a little bit more. Every week he does the little thing where he's talking about the game and is like, on to the next, and it shows the highlights of the play. Like, I feel like he kind of like puts himself out there a little bit. He's done the commercial. His commercial was one of the best when they had like the person, he was in the store and he was like, I'm Tom Brady. Like, I feel like Tom Brady has been pretty good.
Yeah, well, but he didn't write that. He's got to come up with stuff on the spot, right?
That's true.
He's got to be able to break down the game as it's happening. If he has a team writing for him and he's got, so is he going to be so I'm not buying.
I watched a lot of Manning. I watched Manning. I watched both of them on the Monday Night Football thing, and it's like, it's cool.
Well, here that's my argument with the whole thing with like just completely being overpaid. First of all, is he going to be good at it? We have no idea. Is he twice as good as the highest paid people who have already done it and have value doing it? I don't know. But for me, I don't give me Kevin Burkhardt, right? Like, I don't care about Tom Brady. I don't care about Troy Aikman. I don't care about any of the. I'm watching.
I do.
I'm tuning into the game.
a lot of people tune in, and I've heard people like, okay, Booger McFarland, right? Where it was like, oh my gosh, he's so bad. I'm muting the TV. I'm not listening to Booger McFarland. Like, you hear that. There are a lot of people. I mean, I watched a couple games. I thought Mark Sanchez was pretty good, but there are a lot of people like, oh man, Mark Sanchez calling the Niners game, he was terrible. I thought he was solid. Like, people do pay attention to that. I don't pay attention as much. I do notice if somebody's good, where they're kind of pointing out things. I'm like, oh man, like, this guy's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
Tony Romo, he has the, it's the predicting plays thing, but Tony Romo is actually more annoying. I would say it's like, oh, it's 4th and 1. Are they gonna go for it?
I love that about Tony Romo. Like, as the fan, like, that's what I'm feeling inside, and so it's like, oh, this guy's saying exactly what I'm feeling, and I think they're hoping that's what Tom Brady brings. That, and like you said earlier, Peacock, he needs to like think of stuff on the fly. And that's what he's done his whole career, right? I mean, he's been in the football games. He's basically recalling every play before the snap anyway. So he's going to see exactly what's happening. He's probably going to let us know what's happening. And I think that's kind of what they're banking on, right? They're investing a lot of money in this guy, thinking like, well, he can talk on a mic. He doesn't get nervous, and people like him. So let's throw a bunch of money at him and hope that he is the next Tony Romo or the next Peyton Manning or, the next Troy Aikman, who's done it forever and is great at it.
And I think he's shown a lot more personality since moving on from the Patriots.
Yeah,
Patriots, I felt like you didn't really get to see the real Brady. Now, maybe this is kind of a Kobe Bryant at the end of his career. He did the farewell tour, and it was like, wow, Kobe Bryant's an amazing person, right? Where like for the first 19 years of his career, he just hated everybody. So maybe it's that where Tom Brady's coming down to the end, and it's just like, I guess I'll show more personality. I'll be cool. I don't really care anymore. But he comes off to me, especially as a late, as like a lot more personality, being able to kind of shine through. And when you hear him talk about certain things, and again, I love the videos, the Tampa Bay videos where he puts it out, and it looks like he might have the TB12 team. They're doing it or whatever it is, but I think he's been pretty good. I think he'll be good in the booth. I just think he has, first of all, he's from California. So we're already like just hella cool people.
For sure. The best broadcasters come
We're
from
hella
California.
tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hella tight. Hella cool.
Yeah. So like, and that's the thing. It's like he might be fine, and he just made double what the most anybody's ever made that's ever gonna do it.
Whose fault is that?
Yeah, it's not his.
I'm not saying it's Brady's fault for saying yes. I'm saying, what are you doing, Fox? How many more viewers are you gonna get because of this? Is it $375 million worth of new viewership? Are you just trying to get that 1% of people who don't listen and hopefully convert them into longtime listeners, and you're kind of just helping the NFL as much as you're helping just Fox alone, if that's the case, because you're creating some fans. Are people going to tune in that don't like football just because there's a more famous person broadcasting it who's not going to be really on the screen very much? So I say questions if the money is worth it, and if he's even going to be that good at it. It's like you're look, and I've always had this, and it's, as a broadcaster, like, it's tough in this business to work your way through in this business. And to see someone who's never done it get the best broadcasting job and get paid the most, when you're scratching and crawling your whole career to be a good broadcaster and being able to do it, it's like, I would say it's more like drafting Johnny Manziel in the first round because he was good at something else. And you think, oh, look at this guy, he's famous and he's going to be good at in NFL football like he was good at college football, right? And then you're like, it doesn't work that way. Broadcasters broadcast, players play, coaches coach, scouts scout, right? And the guy who leads the all-time leading rusher in the NFL was the worst broadcaster I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah,
right. So it doesn't always translate. All the best coaches, all the best GMs in NFL history weren't necessarily great players. Like, it doesn't always translate. And so
he brings some other value we're missing.
You're hiring a famous person. You're not necessarily hiring the greatest broadcaster of all time. He was the greatest quarterback of all time. That doesn't mean he's going to be the greatest broadcaster of all time, even though that's what you're paying him to do before he's even done it.
He's bringing some type of value. There might be something we don't know about behind the scenes where they sell a certain amount of things, and, having a bigger name there. Maybe he has to go out and do certain things with Fox, as well as, be on the highest show and people are tuning in. I don't know, but I know this from just a business perspective. If it wasn't going to benefit them, they wouldn't throw $37 million at them.
You're not wrong.
Here's the thing. They clearly
per year.
The NFL is a cash printing machine. And so and he's going to make more. This contract's going to make him more than he's made throughout his entire NFL career, which is kind of crazy. And so there's obviously the Fox people think it's worth it. But I seriously think it's okay. We're trying to get more viewers that we don't already have, because it's not going to make me watch more games. It's probably not going to make any of us. We were going to tune into 49ers. Cowboys.
Is it that, or are they just trying to get are they trying to get new commercials? Are they trying to get new sponsors that they weren't going to get before? Now the sponsors are like, oh, you got Tom Brady. Okay. Because that's really what it's about, right? It's more about
how much do they pay?
They're trying to sell a whole package. They're trying to sell to advertisers. They're trying to sell more viewers. So hopefully they can say, look, we hired this guy because we're going to even get more viewers now. We're going to get more casual viewers than we did before because of Tom Brady's in the booth potentially. And that's what they're hoping for. They don't know if that's going to happen, but the value of broadcasters clearly has gone up. And I think it's obviously a reaction to them losing their best guy in Aikman going over to ESPN. So they're trying to one up ESPN. I think that's a ton of it too.
Here's a bigger one. I saw Jim Rome is making $30 million a year. I don't know when's the last time anybody has even mentioned Jim Rome. So if people want to be mad at someone making a ton of money, be mad at him.
I wouldn't have a problem with Tom Brady making $37.5 million a year playing quarterback, because he's done it at a high level for 20 years, like Jim Rome has already doing radio. He's getting paid for what he's already doing. You're paying Tom Brady for something he's never done before. You have no idea if he's going to be good. You're paying him because he's famous. We're just chasing fame at this point. That's what I don't like about him. And you're gifting a guy a job in an industry that
you're not gifting. He earned that. He worked for that. His 20 years of playing football at a high level, and his personality and whatever he did to interview for the job or whatever, like that earned him the job. I feel like he earned that. Like it wasn't just like, here, take $375 million.
I think when it comes to broadcasters too, they want you to feel like they're your friend, like, oh, you're tuning in to watch your friend talk about a football game, right? And Tom Brady has played for so long that I think that he can get, reach a bigger audience, a wider range of age group, because so many people have watched him play. People today are watching it, and people 20 years ago are watching it. So I think that maybe has something to do with it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like Matt Millen, did he earn the GM job that he got, that he was terrible at?
Terrible. What?
did Emmitt Smith earn his broadcasting job? Because he walked right out of playing into broadcasting, and
he earned it. Now it maybe not. It might not work out. It might not work out for Tom Brady, but I do feel like he earned it.
He earned getting paid to play football. He did not earn a broadcasting job, and I would.
He's not an analyst in the NBA or in soccer.
Sport.
Like it's football.
Right. I would like to see Tom Brady call some basketball. That'd be fun.
Look, coaches.
I wonder if this is how people felt when they saw me walk into the media room. Like, what the hell is Eric Crocker doing as a credentialed member of the media? He didn't go to journalism school. Like, he didn't do this and that. Like, hell no, I didn't do it, but I'm here.
They did feel that way. Yes.
They didn't. They weren't worried about it because you didn't make twice as much as them. Yeah.
Actually, I didn't make anything
until you earned it. Until you earned it.
I didn't make anything off of that, but yeah, broadcasting is different.
You got to sit in the press box and watch a game at least.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I didn't even like it, to be honest.
I don't know if Tom Brady's going to be good or not, but this is like Game of Thrones, but like TV executive style. This is suits trying to battle other suits at with big stakes and big money and huge budgets. So who am I to say how they're going to use their budget? Hopefully it works out for them. I'm sure there's outs in the contracts, and maybe Tom Brady doesn't like it and never sees the end of his contract. It might be one of those backloaded deals. A few listeners have said that today on Twitter, that maybe it's one of those backloaded contracts that he's going to get cut before he sees the big portion of that in the back half of his contract if he's not very good at it or doesn't want to do it. Maybe he doesn't end up being passionate about it yet. But
guys, let's be honest, he's not going to do it for another 5 or 6 years anyways, because he's just going to keep playing.
That's true. Yeah, that's actually a great point. Is he actually going to retire anytime soon? When's this contract even going to begin?
Right.
And in 10 years, is $37.5 million a bargain for an ace broadcaster?
There you go.
Doing Fox games. Anyway, all right. Let's talk a little bit of 49ers here. We are opening up the Locked On 49ers mailbag next, but I would like to talk a little bit about Built Bar, a brand new flavor right now at built.com. Birthday cake puffs. Birthday cake puffs, only 150 calories, even sprinkles on top, 16 grams of protein. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. And you can find those at built.com. And with summer coming, you need food on the go. Make sure you've got your kids' backpacks filled with a healthy snack that they are going to love. Make sure your vacations are fueled with the best of both worlds, a healthy and delicious snack. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. Most Built bars contain only 130 calories and have only 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, yet 17 grams of protein. And most Built bars, not the birthday cake, it's got white frosting covering that thing, but most Built bars do have 100% real chocolate covering as well. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off a box for yourself. You can get whatever flavor you want. Some new flavors coming through all the time, like the birthday cake puffs, or get a mixed box of Built bars. Again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Now make Locked On NFL your second listen. The schedule may be dark, but the NFL never stops, and neither does Locked On NFL insights and opinions from Ross Jackson, Chris Carter, Tony Wiggins, plus Locked On NFL hosts repping all 32 squads. No offseason here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we've got the Peacock and Williamson NFL show and the Locked On NFL Draft podcast featuring Eric Crocker. There was a good point made by listener. Let's see, where was it? I lost it here. Oh, it was a 49ers Kyle. Shout out to 49ers Kyle on Twitter, a fellow fan of Richie James. Sad to see Richie James go. I'm interested to follow the rest of this week. But he posted something that I want to talk about really quick. And it's really important for context in all of these prospects that we've been talking about post-draft. And Croc and I have been going deep dive on scouting reports on all of these guys. I think the scouting part is pretty easy. And most times, Croc and I separately watch players come back, and our notes are pretty similar. You might see one thing a little bit different here or there, or watch a different game. You're like, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? But we really see things. I think the scouting part of it is actually pretty easy. And one thing we don't get to see is we don't get to see the medicals, and we don't really know how human beings are wired, and we don't get to be around them a lot. And I think that's where a lot of mistakes are made in the NFL. And a lot of the great players, they're almost broken in a way from the neck up. Tom Brady, we just talked a lot about him. There's something that drives him that's kind of different than most people, right? And it's what's made him great. This from David Robinson, a well-known wide receiver trainer in the Dallas, Texas area. He said he believes 49ers third-round draft pick Danny Gray has the potential to be a Pro Bowl wide receiver one day. Robinson should know because he's trained stars like Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, and Dez Bryant. And he said about Gray, quote, he has that similar type of work ethic. And that gets me as excited as the 4.33 40 time, right, Croc? Because that's what separates guys in the NFL level, because a lot of these guys have talent. They're drafted for a reason. And I think we got all the strengths and weaknesses correct about his game, right? But where does he take what we saw on the college film? Where does he take that once he gets in the NFL? And that's all about your mindset and your work ethic and maybe a little luck.
That's a big part of it, right? Finding out who the player is. And I mean, you can go back to, and I know we talk about Trey Lance a lot, but you know, where Trey Lance came into the league, you find out who he is, and you're like, okay, he's someone that's going to improve on some of his weaknesses and turn those into a strength, or at least not as much of a weakness, right? Like he's going to improve. And you look at Danny Gray, and there were some things that I don't want to say issue with, but some things I identified on film. And, you know, obviously because I don't even know the right way to put this, but because I'm like, oh, Danny Gray, like 49er fans are like, oh, Croc, you hate him. You don't know what you're talking about. He's going to be great. And it's like, look, there's a scenario where he is great, but he's going to have to really work on some of these things. And if our guy, David Robinson, Coach Robinson, the trainer, you know, if he says, right, if he says that, hey, you know, he really works at these things, and whatever flaws he has, like he's going to, you know, just go all out to improve on those things because he has the ability to do it. It'll be one thing if you just don't have the ability to do it, but he has it. So, all right, just learn to play faster, learn to sail the go routes, sit those routes down, learn to use your speed as more of a vertical threat on underneath routes. And yeah, now you are talking about Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver because he has the ability. And the other day I compared it to Terry McLaurin and some of the things I saw from Terry McLaurin. And I thought it was very similar. And the crazy thing is, look, they both went third round, right? Like they went third round for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, it was because they were kind of missing something in their game. But how hard are they going to work to overcome that? And now Terry McLaurin is one of the better young route running receivers in the NFL. And if Danny Gray has that work ethic that his trainer is saying he does, and he can improve on those things, yeah, we're talking about somebody that can definitely be a terrific receiver.
Yeah, you mentioned the work ethic, and to me, it brings up a couple of players 49er fans will know. Obviously, the first that comes to mind is a guy like Juwan Jennings, who got, late round draft pick, wasn't really touted as this much, and he came in, he worked hard. He's worked hard, and he got himself a contract, right? He played an integral part on the 49ers last season. Like, that's the kind of guy you want on your team, and he came cheap. And then on the other end of the spectrum is a guy like Dante Pettis, right? Who comes in, he's highly touted. He's like, yeah, here we go, Dante Pettis. He's going to change things. Had a little success early, and then it was like he almost started smelling his own goodness, Like he almost was just like, all right, here we go. And then he got in the doghouse, and we all know how that ended. So you kind of hope that Danny Gray goes towards the Juwan Jennings thing, right? And you talked about, how Peacock, how Crocker wasn't as high on him. Well, Peacock, I believe you compared him or said he has the skill set of possibly looking like a John Taylor. If I go back a few weeks ago. And of course 49er fans are going to get excited when you say something like that, because it's like anybody who's of a certain age knows who John Taylor is. And if he's even 3/4 of what John Taylor was, and you got yourself a great wide receiver.
Yeah, it's that stride. It's that stride running away from guys after he catches a short pass and hits a crease and takes it the distance. That's what reminded me of John Taylor. So there you go. Danny Gray, a cross between John Taylor and Terry McLaurin. Should turn out real nice for the 49ers in that regard. But yeah, a little toughness and a work ethic, and you're down the right track. And that's where the whole underwhelming with Trey Lance stuff, that's where this idea ties in, is that the only, and this is what I talked with Croc earlier on in the week, Wink, is that the only thing the 49ers at this point, in his young career could even have truly been disappointed about is if he showed up, and because we've seen the arm's fine. It's this, the physical stuff is again, the scouting is not hard. Like, we know what he looked like in college. He had the same traits when he showed up with the 49ers. There's stuff, I heard somebody say something about arm strength maybe not being there. I was like, what are you talking about, dude? It's that work ethic and the smarts and all of that coming together, and the toughness and being able to work through tough times. And, are you putting in the work? Are you a leader in that regard? And it's even more important for a quarterback. And that's why, if Tom Brady probably will not fail at broadcasting, because he's going to work his butt off and be prepared for it. So he's got that going for him for sure. Even if he's not, maybe his personality doesn't come across great, he's going to be prepared for sure, and he's going to work his butt off. And if he's bad at it at first, he'll probably get better. And so that would be the only thing to be disappointed about Trey Lance. But from everything we know, that was one of the biggest positives about him. So unless that's changed, or the person they thought maybe he was, because I think this has definitely happened in the NFL where guys were really good. Wink, you've been a hiring manager before, as I have. You sit across from someone at a table when you're interviewing, you're like, I don't want to be around that person every day. After 5 minutes, like, hell no. And then sometimes someone comes with a nice little resume and it looks pretty and they talk a great game. And then you get them into work. You're like, actually, this person's not, they're a fraud. They weren't anything like that. So that happens in the NFL too, is it's kind of speed dating leading up to the draft. You don't really get to know a player, and maybe the coaches are selling their guys a little bit too hard, the college coaches that you're talking to, and they don't turn out to be really that guy. But I don't, maybe that's what's happening with Trey Lance potentially. I don't think that's the case, because everything we've known about Trey Lance is he's an A+ character guy, and that would be the only thing I think the 49ers at this point could even be disappointed about, and I don't think that's the case.
It would have, everyone would have to be fooled by Trey Lance, even going back to his college coaches. Again, this was a guy who, he wasn't this 5-star recruit and he came in and was handed a job. He had the red shirt, he had to prepare a certain way, and even then, as a redshirt freshman, he had to beat out a Power 5 transfer. A guy that transferred from a Power 5 at the quarterback position, had to beat him out. It wasn't given to him. And then to the tune of, as a redshirt freshman, going 17-0 and throwing 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and however many rushing touchdowns. So I think it would be really hard to fool people on work ethic when you're coming in with that type of resume, as you say. Now, again, there can be an awakening when you get to the NFL, and it's like, dang, it's even harder than I was expecting. Okay, let me sit back. Okay, the offseason, and take a second to be like, all right, I see where I was at, and I see I didn't prepare the way I should have, or I could have prepared better, and now I need to do an even better job of doing that. There could be that where he just kind of caught off guard, but I think they got the right person. Now it's just him figuring it out at the next level.
And maybe that's it. Maybe the game hasn't slowed down for him as fast as they thought it would, and so that's why they're underwhelmed by him.
Yeah, and even all that stuff too is just we saw him. The game didn't look sped up for a dude who had every reason to be the most raw quarterback we've seen in a long time, and he didn't feel that way at all to me. And maybe it looked like that in practice, but we hadn't heard that reports from folks that were there in training camp. I didn't see him in person in training camp, so I don't know. But all I can judge is the game film that I saw from him, and it didn't look too fast for him, which is a huge hurdle to leap for him.
Haberman and Middlecoff, I'm big fans of Haberman and Middlecoff. I listen to them faithfully. They are going to keep it real. Like if they're seeing something and it doesn't look right, like they will say it on their podcast, like, we saw him, doesn't look great. They walked away after watching Trey Lance during training camp and said, oh, he's going to be the starter. Like that was their boom. That was their reaction. Like he's going to be the starter.
They thought he was going to start as a rookie.
Yeah, they're just like, when is it going to happen? Like that's what they saw. So we hear all these different underwhelming and all these different reports and all that, but I don't know. I think it's tough because like, what do you expect from a guy who was a rookie? Was he supposed to come in and the game not be too fast, or was he supposed to come in and just be 100% perfect? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it wasn't that. Those guys keep it real, and they came out and they were like, he's good. And then they said again, like they'll go to practices this year and they'll look, okay, what does it look like? If it looks bad, they'll say, yeah, he did not look right. It didn't look right the way the ball's coming out of his hands, this and that. But they were like, dude, when you just watch them, it's like, man, physically imposing. The tools are there, big throws, splash play. Like they liked everything that they saw last year. We'll see if he can do it again this year and be even better.
Seth wants to know: are the New York Giants, after declining the 5th-year option of Daniel Jones, are they a dark horse team for Jimmy G?
No, because they have Tyrod Taylor. So I think I think Tyrod Taylor is their insurance. So if things don't work out well with Danny Dimes, then all right, Tyrod Taylor, you're in. And people forget this, but Tyrod Taylor last year he played like the full year with Buffalo right before they drafted Josh Allen.
Yeah,
they were in the playoffs. you know, a Buffalo Bills team led by Tyrod Taylor was in the playoffs. And then the next year they had Josh Allen and they were not in the playoffs. And then obviously we've seen what Josh Allen has done since then. But
Tyrod Taylor was supposed to start the Chargers the next year, but he got like a puncture in his lung or something, right?
It's a freak accident, and then all of a sudden the rookie was too good. You're not going to bench Herbert again after that. So kind of a raw deal throughout Tyrod Taylor's entire career.
That happened in Cleveland as well, where he was like one game in, and then he like hurt his thumb or something. He broke his thumb, so then Baker Mayfield had to play, and then it was like, well, you're just never playing again.
Your insurance policy should be a little more reliable, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe just don't count on him to be the starter.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. He needs to start as the backup and then become the starter.
I could see a scenario, where a staff is like, oh, no, like we don't need Jimmy Garoppolo. We have Tyrod Taylor. Like there is that scenario, and maybe a conversation that's happening in meetings.
And really, right now, there's never Tom Brady's a big part of it. Tom Brady's 45 years old, still going, and all these older quarterbacks are playing so long. This is probably the biggest. It's not necessarily a surplus necessarily, but there's been such a shortage of starting caliber NFL quarterbacks forever, and this is probably the year that it's stocked up the most, just because the last year was a big draft class with a bunch of first rounders and so many older players that haven't retired. I think it's the least scarce it's been in our lifetimes as far as quarterbacks being around. So you have a guy who's legitimately Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo are starting quarterbacks in the NFL. For teams not to be knocking down those walls to get those guys is kind of crazy actually right now.
Well, I mean, again, but two different reasons as to why.
Oh yeah,
knocking.
Sure.
One guy is like, can he throw a football right now? No. Then the other guy is like, he's kind of a different personality. And he was a guy that dealt with a lot of injuries last season as well.
He probably shouldn't have played. And to be honest with you, both quarterbacks battled through injuries, and maybe they shouldn't have played because they'd both be healthy right now and maybe be on rosters. Going into last year Daniel Jones, like the New York Giants right now, Daniel Jones was so much worse going into his fourth year when they decided not to pick up his fifth-year option. It was a no-brainer when it was time to pick up Baker Mayfield's fifth-year option. Like they drafted him number one, the first quarterback to win a playoff game for the Browns ever, practically, that I can remember. And he was like, "Oh my God, Baker, this guy's awesome." It wasn't like, "Oh, are we going to re-sign him?" It was like, "How much are we going to end up paying this guy as our franchise quarterback?" That wasn't that long ago. And one injury-plagued season and some, awkward personality traits. I mean,
which it seemed like everybody loved him. Like, didn't it? Yeah. Wasn't that like the thing with he just like a guy's guy and his teammates love him and all that? And then they are, they're talking about him getting traded to the Panthers, and young players said, "No, we don't want him."
It's crazy. He's on national TV commercials. This guy was a franchise quarterback, and then
his fall from grace happened fast.
Yeah,
right. Because there were people after his rookie year that were like, "Oh, is he a top 5 quarterback? Is he a top 10 quarterback?" Like there were those conversations after just him being a rookie, and he played cool, but it wasn't anything like earth shattering. But they were already kind of putting him into that tier.
Yep.
And the Browns were so quick to give Watson this ridiculous contract. You don't even know his playing status. Like they didn't like Baker Mayfield that much. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. To all the baggage coming with him, and he's like, "Oh, he might be suspended for a year." And it's like, "Well, and we don't even want Baker for that year. We're going to go sign Jacoby Brissett." Pretty crazy.
It's wild.
This from 904 Niners Nation. He said, at BD Peacock, at Barry Wink, it's been almost 5 years since the last all-time 49ers draft. And he actually brought up a screenshot. It was June of 2017 when we did it. So I think it's time we revisit it. He said, get Eric Crocker involved. There's a lot of new players that should get drafted. 11 starters on both sides of the ball and no backups this time, Peacock.
Well, I like it.
I crushed Wink so bad in that draft. I don't know if you want a piece of this, Croc, but we could do a 3-way all-time 49ers draft if you guys want to get involved and draft 3 squads and let the listeners tell us who won.
I'm probably going to win, but all right, let's do it.
I'm going to go 2-0. It's fine.
Well, knowing Wink and Croc and how they duck each other in the Madden thing, then they'll probably duck me in this too. But yeah, I think that's a perfect thing to do during June, during the true downtime before training camp of the NFL off season. So that'll be fun. It'll be a multi-part series with 3 of us. It's going to take a little while, but we'll draft those teams in June. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So great idea. Let's do that this summer. I want to get to also something that I've heard a bunch since the draft, and I've kind of responded to a lot of people. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but Lucky Gluck here says, did I miss an episode of the Shadow 49ers draft? And I've seen it in the comments on YouTube, and I've seen it on Twitter as well. A lot of people asking about my 49ers Shadow draft that I've been doing for a while, since 2013. But I officially retired it this year. So there is no more Shadow 49ers draft. It was basically, I wasn't going to be able to put in enough time and work to really dive into the later round picks. I watched a lot of the earlier round picks and stuff like that. So if you're wondering who I would have taken, Drake Jackson, I loved it in the first round. I would have taken, or in the second round, in the third round, I would have taken Nick Cross, the safety from Maryland, at 93. I would have taken Calvin Austin, different wide receiver, at 105, although I like the Danny Gray pick as well, and he would have been maybe the next guy up at wide receiver. And I would have taken Zach Tom, an offensive lineman, sort of a center tackle versatility in Zach Tom, who ended up with the Packers in the 4th round. That would have been my 4th round pick. And, I'm not really sure beyond that, but those would have been my guys. So those are the guys I'm looking for that I would have selected instead of the players that the 49ers took. And that would have been my Shadow 49ers draft this year. But I wanted to retire it because it was more fun to just watch the draft and not have to be on the clock and drafting along with them. And I think I proved my point over the course of almost 10 years. So I retired.
And your point was you're better than them, right?
Yeah. My point was that
proven.
Listen to what we say on the podcast, because every damn draft, people are like, how dare you say that about Aaron Banks? He's going to be good because of this and that. And I'm like, I don't see it, man. And Croc's like, I don't see it. And guess what? I tell you what,
don't see it.
Go back to the post-draft episode from last year and you find the lie. There won't be any, right? So that's what I'm saying.
That's a good exercise right there. Like,
I like
just
that.
replay that after drafting Aaron Banks, and I joined you shortly after that, right? Like right after that, and we had that conversation, and I was like, I don't know what they like about him.
And that's what happens. And like every pick is not going to be good, and really it stemmed from me being annoyed by Balky, because people were like, Balky's the draft ninja. They were all about him. I was like, this guy's kind of trash. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And the AJ Jenkins draft was the last. I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna do this, a shadow draft. I'm drafting along with him. I'm gonna take on Balky, and I crushed Balky. And to be honest with you, I think I've done better than Kyle and John, especially in the earlier rounds. They've had those really nice late round picks though. So, but my point was, look, it was fun for me to do. It was just an exercise to see how I could do scouting department of one. Like, and I think there's something to it. Like, there's some over analysis that happens in the NFL, because we talked about it. We don't get to know the players. We don't get to do the interviews. We don't get to talk to their college coaches. We don't get the medical reports. I should be getting crushed by the real GMs that are making these picks. And the fact that I'm not is weird, right? Because I can't go in. We a kicker makes a field goal. We're like, look at this idiot. This dumbass can't even make a kick. I couldn't go make a 35-yard field goal, but I could outdraft a GM, an NFL GM, scouting department of one. How's it possible? What are they getting wrong? What's wrong with the process? Because they should be so much better. Yet
that needs to be a whole conversation there. Like, where do they go wrong? Like you said, it's not just a scouting department of one. You don't have nearly the resources. Right. And I don't know how you watch your film, but it's not like you have like this super database of all these guys' film. And even then, you are able to draft better than them. And this is not not even like an opinion. Like when where I don't know if you have it still, but I know you had it. The whole not PDF file, but
the whole spreadsheet. Yeah, the
Excel,
rundown.
yeah, the spreadsheet. You have the whole spreadsheet of their pick and your pick. And this is like, you can't lie about it because you do it right then and there.
Yeah.
When they're on the clock. So like, this is the reality of it. And I've looked at it, and you drafted better than them, Balky and John Lynch. And
especially the players, the early picks I was better at, and they probably outdrafted me, especially the Lynch Shanahan era in the later rounds, the 5th, 6th round picks. But I did better the more information I had. The top guys that I watched the most, I had the most information on. And that's what we were talking about earlier. It's like the scouting part is not that hard. So when you miss so much, like on Solomon Thomas, it's like Solomon Thomas is a tweener. Like, he's not a number 3 overall pick. So that's a mistake. That's a mistake in scouting. I know you like the dude and you shared a college classroom with him. And that's where the 49ers have done really well, is they've gotten the character side of things right too. So that means they've missed on the actual scouting on some of these guys.
Well, here's the thing.
Or maybe and medical in some cases.
And I talked to a lot of people about my experience being in the NFL. And the thing that I noticed right away, where, like, dang, these football players, they're just like us, right? Like, they're normal people. They feel the same things that you feel. Like, people think they can go on there and talk crazy to athletes and all that. And it's like, dude, they are normal people just like us. Right. They feel everything that you feel. The only difference is they just have a lot more money in their bank accounts for the most part, right? Like, that's the only difference. So when you look at these talent evaluators and scouts, listen to the former scouts, listen to the former GMs that are now, and you might say, well, they're former for a reason, but they did that job for a while. They were the guys picking for some of your favorite teams. And look at their tweets and some of the things that they say about players and go back, and you'll realize they ain't better than you. Like, they're not. They are normal people just like us. They watch football just like us, and they get it more wrong than Peacock.
Yeah,
they're just better. Yeah.
It's flawed human beings drafting flawed human beings.
There you go.
And it brings me back to the beginning of this conversation. Coaches coach, scouts scout, players play, broadcasters broadcast. And in the rare instance, sometimes people are good at both, just like Eric Crocker, just like Brian Peacock, just like Nick Winkler, and Hansen all at the same time. Like, how is it even possible? How is it possible, guys?
We're just like you guys. I have even less money in my bank account than you guys.
How can this much talent come together every week on this one podcast? It's pretty amazing. So, Wink, thanks for joining us once again here on another Winky Wednesday.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Make sure you're checking out all the Locked On Network has to offer with your second listen. And Croc and I back tomorrow, getting back into the scouting reports. Let's go back to the top. The first pick for the 49ers in 2022, Drake Jackson, defensive end from USC. Scouting report, what that defensive end depth chart looks like. And then later on in the week, Croc, we've got the schedule. The schedule release is coming.
Woo.
Thursday night. We'll be all over that one as well. So talk to you then right here. Locked On 49ers.
See ya.